Welcome back, listeners, to another captivating episode of Red Hunt, where I, Red, dive deep into the extraordinary world of relationship stories found on Reddit. So sit back, relax, and prepare to be enthralled by tales of love, heartbreak, and everything in between. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more amazing content. I don't miss my ex, but I still feel hurt and judged. It has been almost 2 years since my last conversation with my ex, and a bit over 2 years since we broke up. Our breakup was painful for both of us. I broke up with him because I felt mistreated, and he spoke to me in a hurtful way. After the breakup, he treated me even worse, insulting me and making me feel ashamed. We had a brief fling as exes, but he eventually backtracked and continued treating me poorly. I felt judged and humiliated by someone I had been intimate with. He would make hurtful remarks, wished we had never been together, and shamed me for being with someone else. During our relationship, I also felt judged, which stemmed from his own insecurities. I tried to be more confident, while he wanted to fit in and be seen as normal. This had nothing to do with femininity. Despite all this, I always tried to remain respectful and not respond with hurtful words because deep down I still cared about him. Our last day together, I knew it was the end, but he dismissed it as me being dramatic. I texted him afterward, expressing that I didn't regret anything because we were still part of each other's story. The first year after the breakup was tough, but I've had 2 short relationships since then, ending on good terms. However, I still feel shame and sometimes feel like he can see and judge me. This feeling of shame has been present in various aspects of my life, and it hurts to have someone I was so intimate with hate and disrespect me. He also made me feel loved during our relationship, and I never suspected he would cheat on me. This has made me question who I am and which parts of myself are true or just protective mechanisms. I no longer enjoy posting on social media, and I wonder if this is due to the judgment I feel. After that school year, I went on an exchange program to get away from that city. I know he was still angry for at least half of that year. I've thought about reaching out to him, but I fear it would only lead to seeking reassurance or potentially disaster. I will see him again in September, and I hope to be healed by then. I want to be cordial and find peace, but I'm afraid I'll still be afraid of him and feel more shame. I will never know what he truly thinks or knows about me. He had more friends in our class, and I suspect people talked about me to him. Recently, I've been thinking about myself, my changes over time, and the person I want to be. This has brought thoughts of my ex to the surface. I feel better after expressing all of this, but I'm unsure how to stop the shame and judgment from affecting me. It sounds like you went through a really tough breakup, and it's understandable that the shame and judgment you experienced during and after the relationship still affect you. It's important to focus on yourself and your own growth, and not worry about what your ex might think. You don't need to reach out to him to find closure or reassurance, as it's unlikely to help. Instead, work towards building your self-confidence and surrounding yourself with people who appreciate and support you for who you are. Am I the antagonist for not repaying student loans my mom took out in her name? My mother disowned me because of my sexual orientation. She told me I was not her son and that she would never acknowledge me as her own. I set up a meeting with a trade school, and a representative came to my house. My mother attended the meeting, and we discussed the details of the school program and options for loans. The representative suggested a Parent Plus loan. Initially, the agreement was that I would repay the student loans myself. After a few years, I left school and started working in my trade career. I am now responsible for all my living expenses and making loan payments. The total amount of the loan after graduation was about $40,000. I managed to pay it down to around $11,000. However, my mother and I had a falling out, and she has been completely removed from my life. Just before our falling out, my mother wanted to buy a car. She noticed that her credit score had significantly improved over the past few years and thought she could get a newer and more reliable car. However, her loan application was denied due to her high debt-to-income ratio. She called me and demanded that I transfer the loan to my name so she could buy the car. I tried looking into it and contacted the lender multiple times but was unable to find a solution due to difficulties with their operating hours and my work schedule. As a result, the loan was never transferred. Later, the loans went into forbearance and I took the opportunity to stop making payments since I had paid ahead. Since the falling out, I have not made any payments towards the loans. Now my mother is using my oldest sister to reach out to me and ask me to transfer the loans once again. The original lender has been bought out, and they are contacting my sister to set up a new account for continued payment. We have not spoken in 3 years. I have no obligation to the loans, as my mother disowned me and severed all ties. I explained to her that her improved credit score was due to me paying off a loan that was solely in her name. I lost the opportunity to build my credit history during that time. However, when it became an issue for her, she suddenly expects me to resolve it and take on the responsibility. I even bought her a car during the repayment period because she was financially struggling and her old car was not working. I have done more for her than anyone else in my family. But now that our connection has been severed, I no longer feel responsible for handling her problems. She is a grown adult who willingly entered into a loan agreement on her own, and as far as I know, I have no legal obligation. So, am I the asshole for telling her off and stating that it is her problem to deal with? Your mother disowned you and refused to claim you as her own, so it is completely justified for you to refuse to take on her financial burdens. She made her bed, and now she has to lie in it. Steal my do not disturb sign. Enjoy your breakfast. This happened sometime in the 2010s, and I can't remember the exact year. It was during a time when hotels automatically provided daily housekeeping, unless you specifically declined it by hanging the do not disturb sign on your door, or requesting to be added to the no housekeeping list at the front desk. Whenever I travel, I usually decline housekeeping unless I'm staying in the same hotel for over a week. On one occasion, I unexpectedly had a couple of days off in the middle of a job. Since I had been having trouble sleeping, I decided to stay in my room and catch up on rest instead of going out. So you can imagine my surprise and annoyance when housekeeping knocked on my door on the first day. I hurriedly got up and reached the door just as they were entering. It was only then that I realized the do not disturb sign was no longer hanging on the handle. I asked them for a new one. They fetched it from their cart, hung it on my door, and apologized for the disturbance. The same thing happened again the next day, but this time, by sheer luck, I figured out what was going on. As I was going out later to grab some lunch, I spotted one of my colleagues taking the sign off another colleague's door. This guy was known for pulling pranks that nobody liked him for, and this behavior was a prime example. So I decided to get my revenge. I knew that he usually ignored the hotel staff whenever possible. This included walking out without checking out and simply leaving his keys behind in the room. Coincidentally, this hotel provided a card for ordering breakfast. It had spaces to indicate the desired delivery time and checkboxes for selecting the items you wanted. At the bottom, you had to write your name and room number. It wasn't difficult to obtain someone's room number from the front desk when you were traveling together as a group. Plus, we had to leave the hotel the next day very early, around 4:30 a.m. to catch our flight. So the night before we left, I ordered a lavish breakfast for him to be delivered at 7:00 a.m. It included eggs, sausage, bacon, a breakfast sandwich, fresh fruit, juice, a large coffee, and anything else you could think of. I hung the card on his door with his name and room number written on it. After calculating the cost, it looked like it would amount to around $60, including fees, tax, and a pre-added tip. True to form, my colleague didn't bother checking out, meaning no one would have a chance to notice the breakfast order. When he received his bill by email a couple of days later, he was furious. The company covered the room expenses, but incidentals were not included. So he ended up paying for that expensive breakfast, even though he wasn't there to enjoy it. That's some clever revenge right there. Can't blame you for wanting to teach that annoying colleague a lesson. Hopefully he learned his lesson about messing with people's peace and quiet during their hotel stays. Advice on how to have the still do you like me conversation in my 40s. I am a 42-year-old woman, and my partner is a 46-year-old man. I need advice on how to have a constructive conversation with him. We have been together for 2 years and have lived together for 10 months, but I am moving out in 8 weeks because I bought a new house after selling my previous one. Living together was only temporary, and he was kind enough not to charge me rent or bills. I take care of buying food and cooking. However, his rural location makes it difficult for me to commute to work and visit my friends, so I found a new house that is closer to work and only 20 minutes away from him. We both lived alone for many years before I moved in with him. While we were dating, he was always reliable and made an effort to spend time with me. He made me feel incredibly happy. However, since I moved in, he seems lazy or indifferent towards me. I feel unloved. We no longer have date nights, despite my attempts to plan them. Whenever I make plans, something always comes up on his end, or he simply doesn't follow through, so I gave up. We rarely spend quality time together. On weekends, we typically do our own separate activities because I don't trust him to stick to plans. Before, we used to spend every Saturday and Sunday together, with him occasionally going out with friends on Fridays. He rarely informs me of his plans unless I specifically ask, and I am rarely included. Additionally, our intimate life has become infrequent due to his tiredness, illness, or hangovers. For instance, today he was working in the morning and I asked if he was going out at night. He said no, but when I came home from the gym, the house was empty. I texted him to ask where he was, and he replied that he went to the pub for an hour. When I asked if he would be home for dinner, he didn't respond. 4 hours later, he was still there. I don't mind him going out, I just want to be informed. I have had conversations with him about this issue before, because I genuinely don't have a problem with him going out. I simply want to know if he has plans, and if he will be home for dinner. However, he gets angry when I ask, accusing me of being controlling and going into a bad mood himself. He also accuses me of being moody, even though I am not. I just want the respect of knowing whether he will be out or if I should prepare food for both of us. I want us to have our own social lives, but not at the expense of our relationship. He tells me he loves me and shows affection, but his actions don't align with his words. It feels like he has stopped putting effort into our relationship now that I live here. He has been married once and had a long-term relationship, both of which ended due to affairs. His family claimed those partners were controlling, but I wonder if his lack of interest in sex and tendency to be lazy played a role. Therefore, I am not sure if he is lazy, doesn't care about me beyond being supportive of me not being homeless, or if he is upset that I am leaving soon. I am slowly disconnecting and starting to lose interest. I need advice on how to express my feelings without argument. He tends to become defensive and fails to see my perspective. I don't feel secure in our relationship at all. To summarize, I need to have a conversation with my partner, DP, about whether he is still interested in our relationship without it leading to an argument. It sounds like communication is key in this situation. Maybe try having a calm and open conversation with your DP, expressing your feelings and concerns without placing blame. Let him know that you value spending time together and want to feel more connected, and see if you can find a compromise that works for both of you. Wife is refusing to finish her university project without my help. My wife has her graduation project due at the end of this month. I am currently working and pursuing a master's degree part-time. Over the past 4 months, my wife has been diligently working on her project, and I have been supporting and guiding her throughout the process. However, this does not mean that she hasn't been putting in the hours herself. On the contrary, she has exerted a great deal of effort. I have made it a point to be present 75% of the time while she conducts research, in case she encounters any roadblocks or requires further guidance. Recently, I have been feeling a lot of stress due to my own work responsibilities and an upcoming exam in 3 days. Being unable to study after a long day at work has been frustrating for me. Moreover, seeing my wife spend her time on her phone without doing anything productive has been causing tension to build within me. I have made several attempts to encourage her to study, as time is running out and she isn't making progress. I know that in a couple of days, she will look to me for a starting point, but I am already overwhelmed and uncertain when she wants my assistance. Sometimes I'll be sitting after work, and she will give me a look that suggests she wants help to get started. Today she told me, "I don't know what to do, and I need you to tell me." Since last Thursday, I have been advising her to create a draft plan outlining what tasks are remaining and what she expects from me in the upcoming days. This way, I wouldn't have to spend too much time thinking, and she would have a clear idea of her next steps. However, she only wrote a few lines on a piece of paper and now insists that she doesn't know what to do and that I am just as clueless. I honestly expressed my stress to her, highlighting how it affects me when she seems uninterested in her project while I am trying to prepare for my exam and handle work-related thoughts. Additionally, the burden of deciding what needs to be done for her project has added to my stress. In response, she became defensive and started suggesting that I shouldn't concern myself with her project and that her failure or success is not my responsibility. Essentially, she became angry because I expressed my stress related to her project. She now refuses to communicate further and has shut down. Therefore, I decided to go for a walk to clear my mind, which is why I'm writing this now. I need advice on how to improve communication with her and find a way for me to express my feelings without her becoming angry every time I bring up something that bothers me. This is not the first time we have had a disagreement with similar behavior and outcomes. I can't continue to ignore her lack of progress while time slips away, because the final 2 weeks of this month are going to be extremely challenging. How can I motivate her to take action even when I am exhausted? It sounds like there is a lot of stress and tension between you and your wife regarding her graduation project. It might be helpful to have an open and honest conversation about both of your needs and find a compromise that works for both of you, such as setting aside specific study times or finding alternative resources for her to seek guidance from when you're unable to help. Am I the antagonist for not doing a tradition I did with my full siblings with my stepsister and half-siblings? I am a 15-year-old girl who lost my father and 3 siblings in a car crash 7 years ago. They were on their way to an amusement park, while my mother and I stayed home because I had woken up sick that day. They never returned, and our lives changed forever. My mother decided to remarry and have more children as a way to move forward and find happiness. While I understand that it worked for her and brought her to a better place, I personally don't feel the same way. Acting as though this new family is the same doesn't bring me any healing or joy. My mother's husband had a daughter named Kat when they met, who is now 10 years old. They also have 2 children together, Luke, 5, and Rosie. Now, there's this tradition that my siblings and I used to do, which my mom considers a tradition as well. It involves my older sister gathering us together to bake cakes on special occasions like birthdays or back to school. In the beginning, mom or dad would help us, but in the years leading up to my sister's death, it was just her doing it with us. This tradition holds many fond memories for me. There are even photos from times before I can remember, with one of our parents helping out. Mom has those photos displayed all over the house. She took a lot of pictures of us baking together. My mom wants this tradition to continue, and she wants me to take the lead. However, I don't feel comfortable doing it with Kat, Luke, and Rosie. Mom is really disappointed by my decision. She says she can see how differently I treat them compared to my previous siblings. And I did have a younger brother, so I know what it's like to have a younger sibling. She understands that I haven't formed an attachment to them yet and don't find the same joy in them, but she wants to help me develop that bond. It saddens her that I view them as a second and lesser family. I told her they can never replace my original siblings, and she agrees but believes that we can create something similar. I told her it's different for her and I understand that, but for me, they will never be the same. She asked me to continue the tradition for her, so she can witness her living children bonding and relive the good memories. I expressed doubts about my ability to do so. At the very least, I would be emotionally shut off and unhappy. This upset her, and her husband told me that she lost her previous children too, and my refusal to move forward with them makes it harder for her to feel true happiness and a sense of progress. Mom and her husband consulted with my therapist, which only made things worse. I'm assuming they didn't receive the answers they were hoping for. Now there's a tense atmosphere at home, and I can see how upset my mom is with my decision to decline. Am I the asshole in this situation? It's completely understandable that you don't feel the same attachment and joy towards your new step-siblings as you did with your original siblings. It's important for your mom to respect your feelings and not force this tradition on you. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.